Hi, my name is Catherine Gomes. I am the author of the Apologia series, Exploring Creation with Mathematics. And in this video, I'd like to explain to you the philosophy and the structure of the program and give you kind of a behind the scenes look at why I laid things out the way I did. So I love research and I'm really fascinated by neuroscience and everything that we have learned about the brain and how kids learn best. And the way I view it is God designed us to learn best a certain way. And if we tailor our homeschool lessons within that design, it's so much more effective than when we're kind of like teaching against the way God designed it or against the grain. So before I wrote any lessons for the Apologia Math series, I really looked at what we knew, what do we know about what's effective, and I used that research in designing the book. And there's two pieces of research especially that really inform my decision. One is a progression, the concrete pictorial abstract progression that researchers have found is the best way to introduce new ideas at the elementary level, or one of the best ways. And the other is the idea of spaced repetition as how we move things from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. So the idea of spaced repetition is you have to repeat a skill a lot of times for it to go to long-term memory, and that repetition has to be spaced out. You need to go to bed, go to sleep, get up the next day. A month needs to go by, and then you look at it again. So I've incorporated that in the books. The concrete pictorial abstract progression is one of those things that's so much easier if I just show you than trying to explain it with words. And I will note that I've added my own fourth step to the progression, which is application. So the idea here is this progression is the best way to teach new ideas to elementary math students. And you want to start with something concrete. So imagine that I'm teaching place value for 3-digit numbers. The first way I would teach a number like 218 is I would actually have the child build it with base 10 blocks. So that's 2 hundreds, that's a 10, and 8 ones, 218. And we'll do a lot of activity, games, sort of play, if you will, with those blocks. They really get a feel for the numbers, and having it be tactile like that really helps them. Then from there, we go to pictorial, which is where we work with pictures of the manipulatives that they've been using. Okay, so it's going to look very similar, but now we're flat on a page. We're not reliant on these blocks. You know, eventually we do have to be able to do math without the blocks. So that's an intermediary step. And then once they're comfortable with the picture, then we can move to abstract, which is just numerals, symbols like plus and minus, that type of thing. The language of mathematics that we all are used to as adults. Finally, application means that they really understand a concept if they can apply it themselves outside of the math lesson. So not, with the book, but in their own world. So an example here would be if you're playing Monopoly and they owed someone $218 and they were able on their own to build that number using their money, okay? That would show you, all right, they've definitely got this concept of place value in 3-digit numbers. Let me show you an example of what that looks like in the book. Obviously, it's going to be slightly different with each topic, but I've kept this progression in my mind in all the lessons, in all the chapters, so it informs the pacing. All right, so let's say I was teaching them how to subtract, all right? We've got regrouping and all different kinds of things going on. The first thing I'd have them do is something with base 10 blocks like this game where they're racing to 0 and they have blocks and they're rolling dice and subtracting that much. So it's all very concrete, but if they have this and another, 10 and they have to subtract 12, they're going to have to break apart a 10. So they're already learning the regrouping. From there, an intermediary step is for me to have them working with pictures of these blocks. Like this, okay? See how I'm showing the example with the blocks? So it's on the page, but they're still picturing the blocks. And then we can move to abstraction like this or like this towards later on in the chapter. So that is the progression. And then of course, what about application? Well, the only thing that's tricky about application is trying to apply math in the real world. It can be dicey because there's taxes and decimals, and sometimes as a parent, you might not quickly think of a great application of something. But what I've done in this book is I've included projects to sort of control how they apply it. So let me give you an example here of one of the projects. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Okay, so after they've done addition and subtraction with 3-digit numbers, they do this project where they plan their own party. So it's an imaginary party, but kids have so much fun with this. They get $300 for $10. They choose the drinks, they choose the food, they choose the activities, and they have to budget for it and make sure that they have enough money and subtract and figure how much they have left over. So that shows me if they really understand the concept, if they can work on something like this. Now, the other piece of research that I told you about was the spaced repetition. And I want to show you the main way that I've incorporated that is through the skills practice, which is all laid out in the teaching guide. So again, if you look at the pacing guide in the teaching guide, you will notice that on each day there is both a lesson and some type of skill that you are supposed to practice. These skills are intentionally distanced from the lesson where you first learn them. So I'll show you, let's look at telling time, for instance. Let me hold this correctly. Over here, all right, this is after the unit on time and money. We're going to go back and practice telling time. And in the teaching guide, there is a whole list of ways that you can practice. I mean, one of my favorites was like, just keep an analog clock nearby. And every once in a while, like have them tell you, hey, what's the time? That type of thing. So that is the skills practice, and that's sort of the structure of the program.